Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with Brielle Brown. She has a fantastic new record out. It's called In Art and Soil the Same. I am so excited to talk to her all about it. Brielle, thank you so much for being here and for doing this. How are you doing today? What's going on?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm just glad we could link our schedules up and
Absolutely.
chatting here.
I really appreciate it. Where in the world are you?
I am in Monmouth County, New Jersey. So
Nice.
down the shore, if you
Cool,
are.
cool. Familiar enough. How has summer been?
Summer's been good. We've had some nice weather, a little hectic with the kids' schedules and all, but just trying to power through here.
Nice. Well, you've obviously found time to write and record music and do the whole thing. How do you feel now that this record is out in the world?
It's honestly a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders, but then at the same
Yeah.
time, as an independent artist, there's just another weight that's added. So, uh,
Yeah,
with marketing and getting it out there, but all of these songs are like little babies of mine. So, I'm just so happy to kind of release them and, give them to everybody else instead of holding
absolutely.
them.
No, I mean, I think most people that consume music just have no idea what it's like to be an independent artist and knowing that it's basically a full-time job outside of the music making and getting people to hear it. But I think at the end of the day, the music is the thing that speaks for itself. Good music gets shared and it gets talked about. And that's kind of why I gravitated to this record and everything else that you've made is like when I listen to it, it doesn't feel manufactured or you just put together a single for the hit. You know what I mean? The whole thing is well thought out, extremely well written, nicely produced, and obviously your vocals are kind of the crux of the whole record here. Um, so I want to get right into it here. I want to know, I guess, what inspired this record as opposed to others.
Yeah, so I started writing this, I believe, back in like 2022. So like
Wow,
right
okay.
after The Well came out. And the first song I wrote for this was A New Sacred, which is, basically about the stories that we tell that shape our existence,
Sure.
going back to the sacred stories. And I think coming out of COVID in a world where, we kind of thought like maybe this would reintroduce us back to being embodied and being one with nature and all of that. And then
Yeah.
we're just kind of on Zoom all day long. And then I
Yes.
realized that, okay, that's not really happening. In fact, we're going in the
Oh,
opposite direction.
yes.
And I just kind of felt like I need to dig into something that's real. And I need to dig into kind of the first stories of our time. Just, I really
Mhm.
wanted to get back into what created these societies that we live in and why. And so I was like, I think I want to study theology. And
Nice.
I was like, do I apply to, you know, I was like, had this crazy thing. Do I apply to Harvard Divinity School? And then I was like, that is like
Sure.
so insane. Like I can't leave
Sure.
my kids for a year. But then I
Right.
was kind of like listening, and I was listening to the On Being podcast, and I heard an episode with Rabbi Ariel Berger, and he was talking about his institute called the Witness Institute, which was started basically to carry on Elie Wiesel's teachings and stories. And the
Okay.
whole program, the fellowship program, is based upon this sacred text and how to learn from this sacred text, even though it's not a religious fellowship, it's just taking these words and translating them into problem solving and how we could be more compassionate and more just moral leaders.
Wow.
So I actually applied for the fellowship and got in and wrote this whole album during the course of the fellowship.
That's amazing. Was this an online thing?
So we met once a month through Zoom, and then we had two retreats that were 4 days long where we got together with the whole
Very
course.
cool.
Yeah, and it was really wonderful experience and allowed me to really dig into, what are these stories about and, how
Yeah,
I can translate all of these things into my music. So,
that's amazing. I've never heard of this institute before. Like, I am Jewish, so I've spent a lot of time around
yes.
rabbis and this and that. But it sounds really interesting, and it sounds like you really kind of took a detour on how people, typically write songs nowadays. They kind of sit in their room and, okay, what did I do last year? What breakups did I go through? And what, blah, blah, blah. But this is like such an interesting way to go about it. Um, how did this sort of compare to what you've put together in the past, lyrically wise?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of always the same process.
Okay.
For the well, it was a lot about, you know, the divine and I took a lot from, quantum physics and, I always like to tell a story and I always want to produce a body of work. And for me, it's like, it goes back to, the 60s and 70s Laurel Canyon
Yeah,
days. That's like, the music that I was brought up on. So, and I feel that as a person that, also develops other artists, I kind of have to practice what I preach. And,
absolutely.
I really, if I'm going to create something, it's going to be something that I took the time to create and that tells a story that, I feel like is worthy of telling. So for me, it's definitely the same process, and it usually starts with the lyrics and some sort of poetry, and then, the music comes. So
That is so cool. Listen, I want to I want to go back to what you said about the 60s and 70s and
yeah.
Laurel Canyon days because whenever I listen to music, it always becomes like, okay, me trying to figure out the genre of things, the sound, the style. Are they, hearkening to the past or is this more modern? But I kind of feel like you've hit on all cylinders and making something that is kind of the definition of timeless. Like this record could have been released 40, 50, 60 years ago, but I'm happy that it's here today and it's fresh sounding as ever. When you go into a record and you're sort of blueprinting things, do you have that sound in mind or does it kind of just organically happen?
Um, I guess during the writing process, not really. I'm actually like a person that doesn't really think about production, like
Okay.
I think a lot of people are very into like what's the vibe? What's the vibe? And it's for
Yeah.
me like what's the story? Like what's
Yeah.
what's the story? What's the melody and what are the lyrics? And what story you're trying to tell? And then the song, you actually, the production serves that song and that story.
Yes.
So it's really important to write the songs and the best songs that, you feel like you can produce for something. And then when I go into the studio, honestly, I have this, it's more of a feeling that I want to express. And rather than telling people like sonically how I want it to sound, I just kind of talk to the musicians and tell them what the story is and tell them what I'm trying to express. And
Sure.
then if you are with the right people in the room,
Yeah.
I think it kind of takes care of itself. And of course, like, you have a producer there and there's, things being talked about, but I think, the essence of the sound really comes from what the artist is trying to express and the other people's spirits in the room.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that because you strike me as a songwriter first. Like,
Yeah.
and I do want to talk about your process of things. Like, obviously, you went through this program and you've lived a life, so I'm sure that's imparted in the music here. But whenever you're starting the song, does it always come for the lyrics, or is there ever like a melody floating around in your head?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes it's a melody. Sometimes, usually they come together at the same
Hmm.
time. But it's hard to describe because I don't, without sounding like completely like bonkers, I don't really think that I kind of feel like artists are vessels and,
Sure.
and our work actually is to be out in the world listening, learning, talking, having conversations, looking at what's going on around us and interpreting that and kind of waiting quietly for this inspiration to strike. And I feel like
Yes.
once it hits you, you could just translate that into something without even knowing that it's happening. And there has been so many times when that's happened where I'm like just stopping on a walk and singing something into my voice memo or just like picking up the guitar and like, trying to like frantically write something
Yeah.
down. And then all of a sudden you have something, but it wasn't just written in that 5 minutes, it was written in the years before that you were like, learning about something or having these conversations.
Totally.
So I feel like it's like our job to be open to those moments and that energy and kind of say, okay, like we're just going to go with this.
Yes, I so agree with you because I think that especially nowadays there's like this like energy where it's like, okay, you need to release every month no matter what, you need to put out an album or an EP every 6 months to keep the momentum going. But then when you listen and you keep listening, there's like a very forced feeling about it. How do you put out this music that has legitimate feeling to you if at the same time it's not real? Like
Mhm.
that manufactured fakeness comes through so easily. And I feel like, yeah, you need to live life. And yeah, if it takes 1, 2, or 3 years to put out a record or something like that, then so be it. It's the, you always want to prioritize the quality over the quantity.
Yeah, it's so true, and you really hit the nail on the head. And I feel sometimes like I have this dual personality because I am an artist, but I also work in obviously in the music industry as,
Sure.
an artist, a creative director, and somebody who develops artists, and I'm on the marketing and PR side. So sometimes I really feel for artists because I know what the industry needs
Yeah.
to make something kind of like, get out there and get caught in the algorithms and all that. But I also know what the artist needs and I know what the world needs for
Right.
their art. And if you're telling somebody, I feel like, a lot of times these companies, they get it backwards. It's like, yes, you want to release every 6 weeks or so because that's just
Sure.
what gets, out there and gets picked up in the algorithms and it's good for the DSPs. But they're missing the part of like, oh, well, you have to go away first and actually write the body of work. Like
Yeah, things take time. And like you're
missing
a person
that.
with a life. You have a life, you have a husband and kids. Like
Right,
you can't just put that all behind you to like
right.
be like, okay, I
Yeah,
need to like go live in the forest for a month so I
yeah,
can do this thing. That's just not how normal life works.
yeah. Yeah. And
And
then
you have all these, yeah,
when you
no,
have the
go.
body of work and when you have the 10 songs or whatever it is,
Sure.
then yes, then you can create a proper release plan. But I think
Right.
just to force it and to force somebody to go and write and release when they really have nothing to write about, it's totally backwards. Doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
It dampens the process. It kind of feels like you're forcing your art, which isn't fun for anybody. And then I think at the end of the day, it kind of takes the fun out of it because it's like, you know, it's the spur of the moment things. Like if you're a creative person, which you are, and you're in the shower and it pops in and it's like, oh, this happened. But I feel like you're so much less creative when you're sitting in a room like, okay, what am I going to write today? That's just, I don't know. We all work differently, but it's complicated. At the end of the day, it's complicated. Um, were there any songs here that maybe stayed on the cutting room floor that you didn't feel quite fit in to the final product?
Interesting. I mean, all of the songs that we did record for this went on the album, but
Awesome. Okay.
I did kind of struggle with the cover a little bit. I did
Really
go back and forth and just and was wondering if it fit in. And that's something to me in the arc of the story of the album. And I really wanted it in there, but if there was one song that I did struggle with, it was that.
nice. And you also mentioned that all these songs are your babies, which I completely understand. So there's no right answer to this question, but like, is there a song or maybe a collection of songs that you're most excited for people to hear, whether it be because of the content of what you're writing about, or maybe just like the feat of the production and instrumentation?
Um, I mean, Blessing to me is really that was the first song we released, first single, and it's the
Sure.
first song on the album. It was really important to me to kind of go in order if possible.
Yeah.
Um, but that one to me is really special just because the band just did something so incredible with that
Right.
song. It was so unexpected, and I kind of knew that I wanted to create this, something at the end, but I didn't really know what was going to happen. And, it was 2 takes and we were done, and that was just, really special. And I just love that song.
Nice. Yeah. Who was the actual band that was put together for this?
It's Aaron Comez from the Spin Doctors.
Cool.
Actually, Spin Doctors know that I always say and there's
Just
no.
Spin Doctors. Okay. It's like the Eagles. It's just
Yes,
Eagles.
I mean,
But
so he's on drums. Vin Landolfi's on guitar. Rob Flores is on organ, piano, and Mark Swirsky, my husband, is on bass.
very cool. Very cool. And then in terms of production, who handled that?
Mark.
Okay,
Yes,
awesome,
yes,
awesome.
yes.
Yeah, it's funny because I think like sometimes production is like speaking another language.
Mhm.
It's, you as an artist, you're sometimes obligated to like, okay, I need to, put out the full scope of things, but to have that person that is sort of the other half of your brain to put it together is such a priceless thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think people really understand how important production is to the final work, which is
Oh,
awesome.
absolutely. Very important to have a producer in the room. Very, very important. Because
Nice.
also they're like telling you things, especially with vocals, they're telling you things about yourself too, that you
Yeah,
be able to see on your own. And I work with my husband, which is definitely it's interesting.
sure.
Um,
I can't imagine. I mean, yeah, how's the
but
dynamic? You don't have to get
yeah,
super into it, but obviously it works enough.
yeah, I mean, we've been working together as not only songwriting team, but like production team for the past like 14 years now. So
Wow,
it's actually like really kind of easy and fluid, and
nice.
because you already kind of know what the other person is thinking. So
That's true. That is true. This is the point of the partnership.
yeah,
Um, have you or do you want to play these songs live? Is that something that might be in the works or potentially on the way?
I would love to. It's just like about figuring out now how I'm going to do that and when, because the summer is
Yeah,
so crazy. But we're working on something. So hopefully, I'd like to do it a little bit more stripped down just because it's so personal. These songs are so
yeah,
personal. And, I would love to, even if it's just, Mark and I doing an acoustic set, just a listening
that'd be
party.
awesome. I mean, in a similar vein, though, and again, the songs are all your babies, so I completely understand. Is there maybe one song that you're most looking forward to playing in a live setting?
Hmm. Um, I really love Dust and Bone. I think
Okay,
that it was the last song that I decided to put on the album, and it's a little bit of an outlier just because it's really about unconditional love and motherhood, and
sure,
um but I felt that it was important to put in there, and I love singing it.
sure.
It's fun to sing.
I think that would translate live as well. But the thing that I like about this record the most is that we've kind of lost the art of the album experience. You know what I mean? Everything is so focused on singles nowadays. And something that I would recommend to everyone who's listening or watching is like, don't listen to this on shuffle. Don't, click around. Like it's meant to be enjoyed from start to finish because there's a story arc. You really do a great job of shape shifting the sounds, but creating a cohesive thing at the end of the day. Like I think it's impossible to pick one song, and I'm glad that you did. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something very like intimate and raw about it, even though like the production's flourishing, and I don't know. It's hard to put into words. That's why I would, recommend for people to listen. But yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, when I send this out, I actually very gently suggest to people that they listen in track order because, even if
yeah,
you can only listen to a few, come back but come back in order because there is like a method to the madness. And
absolutely.
there's a reason why the most upbeat, I would say, like, in radio terms, the most radio friendly song is at the end of the record. Like, there's a
Sure.
reason. So, like, maybe when you get there, you'll have your own reason, but there is a reason. So,
Totally. Track listing is so important and so underrated into creating the narrative of the whole record. So I'm sure a lot of thought went into that as well.
definitely.
Nice. I have a couple more for you. We're recording this basically halfway through the year. I know you've got the weight off your shoulders that the record is out. What is the plan for the rest of the year? Are you working on anything or is there anything happening?
Well, the plan for the next, foreseeable future is to try to get these songs out there more in the world.
Sure.
And, um, I think that after you kind of like release all that energy and get something out, like I personally like always want to go into like a little bit of like an hibernation period.
Yeah.
Um,
I get it.
But, I think that there's always something brewing and there are other songs there. And I'm really excited to get the chance to be working on some new stuff with some of the artists that I'm working with, and some
Sweet.
people are kind of coming back into my life from the past that I'm really excited to work with, and I'm just very just looking forward to kind of giving somebody else my energy,
Right.
and co-writing more, and then kind of like putting me on the back burner just for a little while. But not
Nothing
yet.
wrong with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not yet. I
listen.
still have to get the songs out there, but
Right, because in the future, let this album breathe. You can live life and create those new experiences for whatever might be happening in the future. And
definitely.
that's how it should be. My last thing for you here is it's basically for anyone that's going to discover you from this and listen to the record for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them before they click play?
Don't put me on the spot or anything there.
I mean, save the best for last. So,
Yeah, I think that, the little phrase I used for this album is for the memories uh stored in our bones and the hope we hold for our future. And, I think that that is so much of what this album is, just kind of like a chance to return to ourselves. And if it
yeah,
does that for somebody, if it makes us think of kind of like lifts our perspective a little bit, so we're not so looking at things so closely, maybe so that we can kind of realize that the world is so big out there, and like we have to like kind of look at things from a bird's eye view sometimes and start asking the bigger questions about,
yeah,
you know, what we're doing, why we're in this conflict, or like how do we move past it? Like how do we see the other, in a better way? And
sure.
if somebody could just like take the time to revisit themselves and their bodies with this album, then I feel like, it's done its job. And if it leaves you with a little bit of joy at the end, or maybe like a little bit of like, oh, I think I really need to ask some questions about, why I'm doing certain things, then that's the whole point.
Perfect. For being put on the spot, you answered that flawlessly, I promise. Brielle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. And again, I'm so happy that we can make this work. For everyone else out there, before we wrap up, I want to plug everything. So if you didn't know, by this point in the interview, this is Brielle Brown. The record is called In Art and Soil the Same. And of course, as always, we'll have the links in our article and everywhere else so that you can listen, share, follow along, and stay tuned for more. This was great, and I so appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I hope to speak soon.
Yes, thank you.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.